She was paralyzed, bound to a wheelchair, and searching for hope. He was the most feared dog in the shelter, known only for growls and scars. When their worlds collided, no one expected what followed. But what happened next brought tears to every eye and changed both lives forever. The hospital room had long grown familiar, the steady beeping of machines, the smell of disinfectant, the view of the same pale walls day after day. For months, a young girl named Emily had adjusted to life in a wheelchair after the accident that left her paralyzed from the waist down. Her once busy days of running through parks and climbing trees now seemed like distant memories fading too quickly to home. Her parents tried to fill the silence with cheer, but Emily felt the heaviness of her isolation. Friends visited less often, unsure of what to say, and school had become a reminder of everything she had lost. She longed for something, or someone, that could lift her out of the quiet sadness that clung to her. Despite the challenges, Emily's spirit still flickered with determination. She dreamed of having a companion, a loyal friend who would not pity her, but see her for who she truly was. Late at night, she whispered her hopes into the darkness, imagining a bond that might bring her comfort and strength. Little did she know, her wish was about to be answered in the most unexpected way. The morning air was crisp as Emily's wheelchair rolled across the pavement outside the local animal shelter. For Emily, this wasn't just a visit. It was the first step toward finding the friend she had dreamed of for so long. Inside, the shelter buzzed with barks, whines, and the clatter of paws against concrete. Emily's eyes widened with wonder at every tail wag and curious nose pressed to the bars. One staff member knelt beside her, speaking softly. "We have many wonderful dogs who would love a home," she explained. "But you'll need one who's calm and patient." Emily nodded, though her gaze drifted past the noise and excitement. Somewhere deep inside, she felt there was a dog waiting just for her, one whose story, like hers, was filled with pain and hope. As Emily rolled past the rows of kennels, her laughter echoed at the sight of playful puppies tumbling over one another. Yet, the further down the hallway they went, the quieter the shelter became. Staff exchanged cautious glances, their smiles dimming as they approached a large enclosure at the very end. Inside stood a massive dog, muscles taut beneath a rough, scarred coat. His deep growl rumbled like distant thunder, and when a volunteer drew near, he lunged at the bars, teeth bared. Families who had come earlier had taken one look and quickly moved on. His name was Bruno, and he carried a label no one wanted to see. Unadoptable. A staff member turned to Emily's parents with a wary expression. "This one, he's different," she admitted. "He's been through trauma, and his aggression makes him dangerous." Most people don't even stop to look. But Emily did not look away. From her chair, her small hands resting on the wheels, she met Bruno's fierce eyes with quiet courage. Somewhere deep inside, she saw not just fury, but pain. His low growls reverberated through the hallway, warning anyone foolish enough to get too close. Volunteers stood ready, leashes firm in hand, hearts pounding as the door creaked open. For a moment, it felt as if the whole shelter held its breath. Bruno stepped out, his massive frame casting a long shadow across the floor. His eyes scanned the room with sharp suspicion, his body tense as though every muscle was ready to strike. People instinctively stepped back, forming a nervous circle. But in the center of it all sat Emily, her wheelchair steady, her small hands gripping the armrest. He growled again, a sound that made even the bravest volunteers flinch. Yet Emily did not move away. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, studying him with a calm curiosity that defied the fear around her. In her eyes, he wasn't a monster. He was a soul carrying a story no one else had tried to understand. Bruno's growl rumbled low as he locked eyes with Emily. The tension in the room thickened, every volunteer ready to pull him back at the first sign of danger. But Emily didn't flinch. She leaned forward slightly in her wheelchair, her voice soft but steady. "Hey there, big guy," she whispered. The words seemed to ripple through the air. Bruno's ears twitched, his growl faltered. He took a cautious step closer, claws scraping lightly against the floor. The staff gasped, expecting an outburst, but instead, the massive dog lowered his head. His tail, once rigid, gave the smallest uncertain wag. Emily's hand trembled as she stretched it out, her palm open in quiet offering. Bruno froze, nostrils flaring, the familiar instinct to snap tugging at him. Yet, as he inhaled her scent, something shifted. The hardness in his eyes softened, his body loosening as if a weight had lifted. For the first time in months, Bruno pressed his nose gently against a human hand without malice. The room fell silent, disbelief washing over every face. Emily smiled, her eyes glistening with hope. In that fragile moment, the feared dog chose trust over anger. Over the next few days, Emily returned to the shelter, her wheelchair gliding through the familiar hallway. Each time, Bruno waited at the end, his eyes tracking her approach. The growls that once shook the air had softened into quiet whines, as though he was calling only for her. She began reading to him, her voice gentle, filling the silence of his kennel with stories. At first, he stayed pressed to the back wall, cautious and uncertain. But little by little, he edged forward, lying closer each day, until his head finally rested against the bars, listening as though every word mattered. Staff members watched in stunned silence. The dog they once feared was changing before their eyes, his anger melting, his spirit awakening. Emily never forced him. She simply offered patience, kindness, and presence. Bruno responded in the only way he knew how, by choosing to trust her, one heartbeat at a time. Weeks passed, and the shelter no longer echoed with Bruno's angry growls. Instead, a gentler sound filled the air, the steady thump of his tail whenever Emily appeared. The dog, once labeled unadoptable, now pressed eagerly against the kennel bars, whining like a pup the moment her wheelchair rolled into view. One afternoon, the staff decided to test what no one thought possible. They led Bruno out of his enclosure and placed him beside Emily in the courtyard. Dozens of volunteers and visitors stood at a distance, holding their breath, ready to intervene. Bruno sat rigid for a moment, scanning the crowd. Then, without warning, he lowered himself onto the ground beside her chair, resting his massive head gently on her lap. Gasps turned into tears. The toughest volunteers, who had handled him with gloves and fear, wiped at their eyes. Emily stroked his fur with trembling hands, her smile radiant. For the first time since her accident, she felt strong, not because her legs worked, but because Bruno had chosen her. Together, they had healed what the world thought was broken. The adoption papers were signed with trembling hands, and the shelter staff gathered to watch the moment they thought they would never see. Bruno, once feared by all, walked proudly beside Emily's wheelchair, his leash loose, his steps steady. No longer a shadow of rage. He was reborn as her guardian. As they exited the shelter, the sun bathed them in golden light. Emily's parents exchanged tearful smiles. Knowing their daughter had found more than a pet, she had found strength, companionship, and a piece of herself she thought was lost. Bruno leaned into her side, eyes calm and loyal. And for the first time, both girl and dog left behind their pain, stepping into a future filled with hope.